A fight to eradicate corruption, maladministration, unethical leaders, and the abuse of taxpayers' money by those in power continues. It's fresh, it's fearless, and focused. The Outer Hour, where your voice matters.
Hello and welcome to the Outer Hour. Here we are in the reception of Outer with the CEO, Wayne Duvenage, and the head of the Accountability Division, Advocate Stefanie Fick. And you, wherever you find yourself, inside or outside of the shores of South Africa, thank you for joining us. It's good to be with you this evening. And plenty to discuss. We're going to be discussing a whole lot of topics tonight. And of course, you're welcome to bring your topics and questions to the table or to the couch, as it is. By putting your comments in the comments section. Shall we take a look at the people behind the scenes tonight, who you'll be meeting in the comments section? This is who you're interacting with.
Hi, I'm Sam and I'll be looking after your YouTube comments tonight.
Hello, Outarians. We have missed you. Can't wait to interact with you guys on Facebook in the comments. Don't forget to invite all your friends and share our Outer Hour.
I'll be saying hello to you in just a moment in the comments section, but let's say how's it to Wayne Duvenage and Stefanie Fick now, CEO of Outer. Wayne, how are you?
Always well. It's been busy as usual in this organization, having a lot of fun with a great team. But I think we're going to get into some interesting topics tonight. We're looking forward to the discussion.
So am I. Advocate Stefanie Fick, everyone's favorite advocate, South Africa's favorite advocate. How are you, Stefanie?
I am very well, if I can figure out this mic.
No, you're doing fine.
Very well, and looking forward to this new setup and what we're going to discuss.
Well, do you realize it's been over 2 years since we've sat in a space together and done an Outer Hour? It's been Zoom links for 2 years. This is the first time three of us are sitting in a studio together and we're in the reception of Outer. What a nice place to be.
Yes, yes.
Trying new things.
The heartbeat of corruption busting in South Africa.
Right here.
Right here.
All right, we'll be opening up the comments in just a moment. You say hello to Samantha and Masego as you join us this evening. We'll see who's on first, and we'll start putting your comments up on screen as soon as they start coming in. Well, let's do a couple, shall we? Just a reminder, as you watch this program, to like and share it. That's how we get the Facebook algorithms to like us and send it out to more people. So that like button, smash it now. That share button, smash it now. And I'll appreciate it. Right, first up tonight, Chief Whip in the comment section is Craig Kent. Fakile Dada is on board. Fakile says, good evening, everybody. Hello, Fix. Hilda Meyer says, good evening, Outer. Nice to have you with us, Hilda Meyer. Olivia Hossel says, good evening. Hello, Olivia. Thanks for joining us tonight. We've got Rudy Heineke, no stranger to the Outer Hour, on the show this evening. Good evening, Outarians. Advocate Stefanie Fick is in the studio and on her device. You can see her in the room. Scott MacDonald says, greetings from Chelmsford, United Kingdom. Madeline Gooch says, hello, good to be with you all. Judy van Gilswyk says, good evening, Outarians. Ashley Elof Muller says, hi guys. Rachel Fisher down in Cape Town in the mother city says, yes, Outer Hour is back. Thank you, Rachel. Nicola Jane Good is on board. Good evening, all. Diane LaRue says, hello, all. Looking forward to another great show. We'll do one or two more quickly. Rudy says, nice couch. I don't know if he spent any time on this couch. Does he just walk past it and admire it? Or does he ever get to sit on it?
I think he sat on it a few times.
Sat on it a few times. Rudy's couch, eh? Janine Blake says, looks good today. Thank you, Janine. Michael John Billsbury from Kabeja says, hi, Tom and the Outer team. Melissa Whitehall says, hello from Pretoria. Ali Gule is on board. So is Peter Webb. Peter Webb says, Peter Webb on board. Stella Tsurasvanikek says, evening all. It's lovely to see you joining. Say hello to each other in the comments section. It's nice to see that community spirit. And then we've got Christine Finnis. We'll do one or two more. And who else have we got? We got Ndangano Makongoza Mashinane. Or Mashashane, my apologies. Good to have you on board. It's very small writing on the screen, and I've got the 1.5s on already. Susan Hubabe. There's another nice tongue twister for you. How's it, Susan? Good to have you on board. And we will say hello to more of you as you join. So pop your hellos in there. Any questions you've got tonight, anything you'd like to put to Wayne and Stefanie. It's a relatively informal conversation that we'll be having this evening. We have got some topics up our sleeve that we'd like to introduce to the conversation. But if you've got something on your mind or you've got a question, then just pop it in the comments section down below. I see Christine Finnis has echoed what we've been saying on the intro of the show. Wow, the team is in Tom's studio. It's not really Tom's studio, it's Outer's studio, but yeah, they're in the studio. I'd like to ask you something, Wayne and Stefanie. Perhaps I can open the show like this, because we discuss heavy topics on the Outer Hour every week. We don't leave the heavy stuff alone. It's quite easy to become despondent about the future of South Africa. I mean, I've sat around a number of dinner tables in the last couple of months where people have said, I'm worried about the future of the country for my children. And I don't know if I've got a future in South Africa anymore. And I hear this. We've been hearing it for years and years. And then on Sunday, I went to one of my family braais, and there were guests there. There were expats from the UK. They've been living in South Africa for a number of years. And they are due for a transfer, like expats who work for international companies are. And they were saying, we really hope they don't move us out of South Africa. They don't want to go to Rio. They don't want to go to London. They don't want to go to Singapore. They don't want to go to Paris. They don't want to go to Germany. They want to stay right here because they love this country. And despite all the problems that they're exposed to as well, they go, we've been all around the world. We've lived everywhere. We like Johannesburg. I mean, most people in Johannesburg are trying to make enough money to go live in the Cape or something. But my question is, how do we balance the very dire problems we've got in South Africa with some enthusiasm about the future, the possibilities that exist? Is it all doom and gloom?
No, it isn't. It's tough at the moment. And this perfect storm of load shedding at level 6 and high fuel prices is a problem. But then the corruption and everything else, and if you're living in a bankrupt municipality, it's worse for you in those environments. I think, though, as your guests were telling you, this is not most of the problems. A lot of the problems we have aren't unique to us. I mean, there are protest actions going on in Europe around the fuel prices in Maputo, Southern Africa country. So it's not a problem specific to South Africa, but we've got our issues and we cannot ignore them, and we have to deal with them. And this is where we talk about active citizenry, Tom. And I just want to mention quickly, this weekend we. Stefanie, myself, and Ferial and Liz attended a Defend Our Democracy conference. We gave input on 4 different panels there, and this is a culmination of many leaders and organizations across all sectors of society, be it civil society, be it faith-based, business, academia, where we are searching for the solutions that we have to bring, as people, and bring hold the feet of government to the fire on the correction that has to happen. And we're caught in a very difficult space because there's political infighting on the ruling party. That is holding us back. A lot has to happen. And between now and December, and between December and 2024 elections, there's going to be some very interesting dynamics that we mustn't ignore.
Do you see possibility in amongst all the mess, Stefanie?
I do think so. I firmly believe that we need to start taking responsibility. Not everything is our fault, but we should stop sitting back and hope and complain about everything that's happening around you. We need to start taking charge. And this is where civil activism comes in. I think it is really important for us to start standing together. You know, at the Defend Our Democracy conference, what I think I took away from it is that there was all levels of society. Everybody was there. And we agree. But it is about stop talking about it. Let's do it. I've said this so many times, there's going to be pain. Being a civil activist is not easy. But if you want to fix this country, it's up to us. If you're going to wait for politicians, if you're going to wait for government.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah, it ain't going to happen. It is up to us. And you know what? The grass is always greener on the other side. Because why? Because
the septic tank.
So no, everywhere there's problems. I mean, and thank goodness, at least we know our problems.
Yeah. This might be the comment of the night before we even get into the comments. Is Paul Rathbone wants to know if you've
is
got any
there-
dollars in the couch.
I don't know.
No.
Did we check?
Not this couch.
Not this couch.
This didn't come from a game farm, this couch. The leather might have, but not the couch. All right, shall we get into the discussion and start talking about some of the pertinent issues that are affecting South Africans? I think, what are the two big ones? Eskom and the fuel price at the moment. I mean, a week or so ago, I went past a little fast food shop that I frequent, and the guy who runs it had broken out in hives,
Oh,
and
sorry.
obviously from stress. And I said to him, "What's wrong?" And he said he doesn't know whether he can keep going. And when you stand with a small business owner who's in tears, by the way, on the pavement outside of their business, they don't know whether they're going to make the rent this month. And load shedding, coupled with a slow economy or an economy that's not growing, has really affected his business. The consequences are dire for so many people. And Eskom just doesn't seem to be able to find a way to alleviate or get rid of the problem. Why? And I'm asking you at home as well as you watch this, what do you think the problem is? I mean, you read the newspaper articles and the media reports. You got one camp that says De Ruyter must go. You've got another camp saying, no, De Ruyter's job is impossible. Leave the man there. Where does OUTA stand on this?
It's policy, Tom. Government has not implemented its policies. It hasn't updated the integrated resource planning process. We have Minister Gwede Mantashe in the DMRE that is doing everything he can to hold on to coal, to suggest nuclear. These are long-term, all outdated solutions. We should have had another 4,000 to 6,000 megawatts of energy on tap right now through renewable energy. But there seems to be this plot and this plan not to go there. They want to bring in car power ships. These are all deals that stink of corruption.
What's the latest on car power ship?
Stefanie will give you an update on that.
Well, yeah. It's the review application. So part of the review application is that nurses are supposed to supply us with the record. In other words, they must give us all the documents and the reasoning and whatever for them actually giving them the distribution licenses. And we got a redacted version that, we are firmly, I think we all agree, and I was discussing it with Henri the other day, that car power ship and nurse are sort of colluded because the way they redacted it, if you think we got a record with like black lines through it, no, they typed, I think they said typed redacted, so it's extremely difficult to read. And they redacted stuff that's actually in the public sphere. So they really went out of their way to make it as difficult as possible. But on the other hand, I mean, we are here. We're not rushing. We don't want this deal to go through. And Car Power Ship is the one with a bee in their bonnet that wants to seal this deal. So we are patiently waiting. We have now requested, we want this case to be case managed so that we can bring up this whole redacted version, Car Power Ship saying there should be a confidentiality thing and all the information can't be in the public space. You know what? We should really, this is transparency in government is extremely important. And government should stop hiding behind, or business should stop hiding behind the fact that, we're a private business. We can't give you our information. If you do business with government, it is civil society's right to know
What's
what
going
on
on.
earth you are busy with. Yeah.
But just to finish the point you asked, had government gone through with their bid window applications for renewable energy and done it on time, and they should have, we would have had no load shedding. Meridian have done the research. They've put out 2 papers on this. Chris Yelland has put recommendations to the the various committees that are tackling the energy crisis. And this is self-inflicted. This is government-inflicted. And here we are floundering with 7% of nuclear energy. Many parts of the world are over 50%. In fact, Denmark and California recently had 100% energy generation.
Marching on
through
towards renewable
renewables.
energy generation.
And here we are clutching at coal, clean coal. I mean, what an oxymoron. It's just crazy that we are in this situation, but it all comes down to government policy, lethargy, lack of leadership, and we really have to up the game of government, and it is our role as civil society to add the pressure.
Wayne, before we came on the show, you were giving me numbers. You were quoting what the fuel price would be if if the rand dollar had stayed where it was and the levies hadn't been increased beyond inflation.
Yes, sir.
So here we go. If the rand dollar was where it was when? In what year?
2008.
2008.
8 rand a litre.
All right.
I mean 8 rand a dollar.
So if we were still at 8 rand a dollar and the government had not increased fuel levies beyond CPIX.
Yeah, so if they've increased the levies at CPI, the same CPI that is applied for the last 14 years, and had we have retained that 8 rand, by the way, even at that stage, the rand was weak then. We get used to the fact that it's at 15 and 16. That's nonsense. We would have been paying 14 rand a litre of petrol now. That's where we should be. That's the benchmark. But we're paying nearly 27 rand.
What's the solution? I mean,
Well, so what I'm trying to say is people keep saying, the Ukraine war. It's not the Ukraine war. We are paying less for the price of oil on the international markets today than we were in 2008. It was $132 a barrel. It's 120 now. So this is not the Ukraine war. This is a government policy, weak economic policy, and this continuous desire to push rates and taxes up above inflation. And they've done it in local government, the vehicle license fees, driver's license fees, everything that we touch has gone up well above inflation. If government doesn't stop this, we're going to have a big problem. And we're already in that space now. We've been warning them for years, and that perfect storm has caught up with them.
Well, here's a comment that's come in from Di Gibson, and I think it's relevant when it comes to Eskom. Di Gibson says, I think all SOEs should privatize. Government should stick to governing. How does that relate to Eskom?
Well, it's going that way rapidly. I mean, nobody is going to buy their power stations, but in the next 30 to 40 years, virtually all energy will come from private entities. Eskom have said already they're not going to be building any more power plants. Medupi and Kusile are well behind and well above budget. So going forward, as these old plants are decommissioned, they're going to be replaced by exactly what Eskom is doing right now. They've sold 14 lots of stands near to the current power stations where the distribution points are, so that people can put up alternative energy, renewable energy sources, and they're encouraged to do so fast. There's going to be a lot of pressure. I think government will be lifting the generation limits from 100 megawatts to 1,000. So there's a lot happening, but it's happening too slow, and it should have happened 3-4 years ago, and we wouldn't have a problem today.
We'll get to your comment now. Let's dip into the comments and questions. Gail Hutchings asks, do government officials have to suffer this load shedding, or do they avoid it affecting them? Ministers and deputy ministers, and do we know?
I don't think they can switch off whole areas or keep them on just because a minister lives in the area. I wouldn't be surprised if that's happening, but I doubt it. The sad thing is that hospitals and places of need that really need energy go down. That's
Paul Rathbone says Eskom has just granted billions in increases with money that they do not have, ?
Oh yeah, but I think that's I heard a comment this morning that what message does that send? If we're not talking, it's people that were not supposed to strike in the first place, because it wasn't they can't go on a protected strike, and we demand and we demolish and we. But yes, 7%. And it is worrying. I mean, it's not to say that people do not deserve it, but I sometimes think the priorities are all wrong. You always have the top management getting ridiculous salaries, and then the lower ranks do not get enough. Now, I have no problem if the guys that are, the lower earning guys, that they get an increase. But why should someone that's already earning... Yeah, I don't want to throw him under the bus, but I think the rate's salary is at 7.9 million. I hope he's not getting an increase. But
I was just wondering about the 7% increase. What was government workers' increase this year? Was it 7?
No, there's 3% that was recently announced. But any increase in government salaries, quite frankly, is ludicrous in the way they're performing right now.
Do you think that should apply to SOEs as well?
Yeah. Everybody where they're not performing, certainly local government, and there should be no increases and certainly no bonuses in any government department, quite frankly, for the services that we're getting.
What I just want, what sometimes is just unfair is that there are people. There's people in local government. There's people in SOEs
who deserve it.
who deserve it. Because they're not only doing their job, they're probably carrying everybody else that's not doing anything. Where I think they should start is firstly look at how many people do we really need? How many managers do we really need? Because they're top heavy. There's too many managers and not enough people that's actually doing the work. Let's start thinning the whole salary bill and the whole government, the amount of people that's working there. Let's sort that out and then start performance manage people. I don't think that happens at all.
But can I also add, government has pushed their salary levels well above private sector.
Yeah.
For the last, again, number of
much
2
like the
decades,
fuel price levy.
well above inflation. And now government employees earn more than the private sector. That research has been done, and that's crazy.
Craig Kent says, gosh, and we still sell power to our neighbors without putting us into the 6-hour blackouts.
Yeah, look, if you've got contracts with Namibia, I know it gets power from South Africa, those contracts are very tight. They cannot be shut off just because of our problems. And the same goes for us. We get energy from Cabora Bassa, from Maputo, and aside from acts of God when once or twice the power lines have gone down, they cannot interrupt that power to South Africa. So those are international agreements or cross-border agreements, and when our power goes off, Namibia's doesn't.
How dangerous is this situation? We see the N4 blocked today, protests around the fuel price levy, for example. We've got highways being closed today. We see the hashtag national shutdown. Obviously, there are factions, and some are pushing for a national shutdown. But when you couple no electricity in the middle of winter with high fuel price increases, is this a recipe for rebellion?
Yeah, it has the potential, Tom. Hopefully it doesn't, because rebellions get out of hand and we don't want a repeat of what happened in July last year. But no doubt, dire situations like this spark the flames that give rise to rebellions. But I don't have to tell you, everybody knows people who are in business who are going under. Many businesses, small businesses, just cannot make ends meet in these under these conditions. It's a really serious situation for us at the moment.
We'll dip into your comments. Melissa Whitehorn says the union building has never been load shed ever. Now, I want to know how Melissa Whitehorn knows that. You work at the union building or across the road. Melissa, spill the beans. John Skuban says, I see Eskom 20 to 30 year forward energy contracts by mining holdings for 10 cents in the rand up front. I mean, John's put a number of comments in there. I think what he's pointing towards is people buying energy for a whole lot cheaper than we do at home.
Yeah.
Is that the case?
That's happening, eh?
Yeah.
Stefanie, your own power will not go up by inflation to the extent that Eskom's is. If you must just go off grid. Anybody building and still wanting to tap into Eskom's energy is crazy. You would build a new house, you would build a new complex or a business today, off grid 100%, and off grid from a water point of view, not just energy.
Loving the comments and questions coming in from your side tonight. Thank you. Keep them coming in our Facebook and YouTube feeds. Christine Finnis has a comment. I'd like your comment on the reaction to this. Basically, the unions held South Africans to ransom, says Christine.
Stefanie, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think we are very unique in South Africa. Remember our history. So there's a part of activism that comes with what we've seen in this country. It's when it's getting out of hand, and there's damage to property that one should not necessarily agree. Unfortunately, I do have to agree that I think our country is run sort of by the unions, but it's because of the relationship between politics and the unions. So, they can't get away with it. So there is a part of me that wants to say, we are an activist sort of country. And we got a lot done with activism. I mean, if we really look at our history, so there's a lot to be said for what we as civil society can do. But to take all of this, is it making the situation better? And is it solving the problem? And I haven't seen any unions that is talking to their members and they go out and they don't, whether that is solving the problem. And it can't all
get worse.
Yeah, it only gets worse.
Well, I think they milked the situation. If we weren't in stage 4 and stage 2, if we had spare energy capacity, I don't think we would have had. That was an illegal strike, by the way.
Yeah, it was.
And I hope that Eskom is going to do what they have to do, which is dismiss people.
Well, that's what Di Gibson's saying. Di's saying essential services are not allowed to strike. Government should call it what it is, an illegal strike.
It was. And the unions just cleverly, distanced themselves from it, saying, look, we didn't tell them to go on strike. We've asked them to come back to work. But they don't do it in a manner that they should. And they should encourage Eskom to take action, disciplinary action against those workers that didn't come in. Final warnings, dismissals, everything you can. If you're involved in some of the sabotage or the messing around, get out of this organization. They are overstaffed by 12,000 people because during Zuma's period, they just threw people at the problem without putting out any additional energy. They went from 30,000 to 45,000 staff. I mean, it's crazy.
We love your comments and questions that come through in the comments section down below the video on our Facebook and YouTube feed. Keep them coming in, and I'll put as many of them across to Wayne and Stefanie. It's an informal session on the couch in the reception area of Outer's head office in Johannesburg tonight. And you're welcome. You've got the other seat. You see, we got the couch, we got this one, and then you're in the other seat. You see, you're the fourth person on the show tonight. I want your comments and your questions. We'll get to them in just a little while. So load up those comments and questions, and we'll put them across to Stefanie and Wayne. Fuel price, is it going up? Is it going to? I mean, it just looks like every month, every 6 weeks or so, there's another R2.50 going on to the petrol and diesel price. It doesn't seem to be going anywhere that way soon.
Yeah. So,
I mean, are we looking at 30 Rand a litre?
Well, if the international oil price goes higher than what it is, and we don't think it's going to bounce around between 100 and 120, maybe $125 a barrel. If the Rand weakens, then it does get worse. And if the petrol price pumps up a bit, or the oil price, I think we're stuck now where our current levies are over 10 Rand. Before you pay for one drop of petrol, 10 Rand goes to a combination of 10 levies. And if the Rand came down to about 12 Rand, and the oil price came down to $80 a barrel, which was where it should be if there's a bit more stability on the geopolitical front, we could see petrol prices coming down to the 20 Rand a litre, but not much less than that. 17 would be good because the levies are too high and the Rand is too weak. That's our reality going forward.
Some funny comments in there. You've got some humor going in the comment section. Like I see Rudy Heineke says we braai, and then Roland said you need to braai a few politicians. Obviously, that's tongue in cheek. Vudzako says average salary in Eskom is $60,000 increase. Like that. Let's throw a general question in from Jared Abelson. Jared says, do you think that the tripartite alliance can and will survive the next election cycle? More and more people talking about the shifts in political power in the next general election. Mr. Gayton McKenzie was on Twitter yesterday saying that he doesn't even think we'll get to another election because people will take to the streets and remove politicians before we get there.
I'm just sometimes, hopefully, firstly, let me say, I'm also wondering about 2024. I see in the comment section, we all know that the Electoral Act is currently in front of Parliament. And the way that they are going is that there's going to be a constitutional fight first, because what they are doing currently is just really scraping or trying to scrape past the fact that the Constitutional Court told them to, allow for independent candidates. But they are doing the bare minimum, and we are all of the opinion that instead of, they had the opportunity to go look at the electoral system that will work in, to the best interest of the guys that is expected to go vote and to hold people to account, because we have a transparency problem, we have an accountability problem, we have a corruption problem. So, and it's the politics, not all politicians, but the and the shenanigans that they get up to. So, whether they will, they should not. But we need a strong political party, whether it is the current political parties or someone new, that gets back to the business of dealing with government and dealing with politics to the best interest of the people that they represent. The majority, and not for their own pockets. There was such a fight for the resources in this country, and the citizens were left with nothing.
Paul Rathbone has put a comment in the comment section saying, high time the justice system sees damage to state infrastructure for what it is, treason/terrorism. You're a legal expert. If somebody cuts the cable to a power station or collapses one of the pylons, as we've seen in the past, is that treason, Stefanie? I mean, would the MPA go for that?
Probably not. Probably not. Treason is one of those. I mean, we laid quite a few complaints against people for treason. Whether you will, but I think what we should discuss is I like the way he thinks, by the way, and maybe we should try something like that just to send a message. The problem is we need to catch them first. So before we talk about what we're going to prosecute them for, we need to advocate for a police service where we have people that is, wearing blue because they feel proud of it, that gets the necessary training in order to do what they're supposed to do, that serves their communities, serve the public, catch the criminals, and then we can prosecute them. Probably for a lot more than we currently do.
Scott MacDonald says the fuel price will continue to rise as the rand weakens, and the historical trend is for the rand to weaken. I mean, I remember when I started in broadcast in 1995, I went to a conference where they had financial analysts predicting where the rand would be in 5 and 10 and 15 years. I can't remember where the rand was in 95. It was probably around 5 to the dollar, 6 to the dollar, somewhere around there.
Lower,
maybe lower than that.
4
to the dollar. And he was quoting figures of 10 and then 15. And I remember walking out with all the financial, I wasn't a financial journalist, but I was walking out with all these financial journalists. They were going, that's impossible. And here we are. But I think I heard you commenting the other day, maybe on Outer Hour or on ENCA, I'm not quite sure, Wayne, that you feel our rand is undervalued.
Of course it is, and it's only because of the potential of the country. If we got economic policy in that made it exciting, sexy, and really attractive for investors to come here, the miners are leaving here, the mining companies, because Gwede Mantashe and the DMRE have made the whole SAMRAD system that controls the mining, the transparency, it's a mess, the corruption, there's a lot of problems. So, a long story short, if you make investment in this country attractive, if you create jobs, if you put policy in place that enhances and adds value to the economy, people will invest here. We can build more cars. We can export more. We can do more agriculture. We can bring in more tourism. Our rand will then strengthen. Just before the World Cup, it was below 8 rand to the dollar. We can get back there. I can assure you that. But it needs a government with a vision to get people on board and to move this country forward. It's not difficult. It just needs political will and a few basic policies to be put in place. Of course, there's a lot of work to root out corruption, which has become endemic, to fix our municipalities. It's going to take ages, but that fixing process is a process that creates a lot of infrastructure, a lot of money flows into the country. The various organizations bring aid into the country. We have got so much potential for an exciting future. And just to your question earlier, I think we're in for an exciting time. If you just asked me before November, would a different party other than the ANC manage literally every city in Gauteng after the local elections? Most people would have said no, but they're there. The DA and the DA didn't get the majority seats, by the way. So this is what called coalition politics.
Do you believe coalition politics is going to work? Let's assume the ruling party doesn't get enough votes to be in the majority in a national election.
In 2024.
Right. And let's assume that the DA stay where they are or increase a little more. Parties like Action SA move up a little bit. The EFF strengthen their support. And all of a sudden you've got a group of what were known as opposition parties that could actually be the majority. Do you think that the DA, the EFF, Action SA, ACDP, COPE, etc. can work together and run this country?
They are doing it already.
Where?
Well, Gauteng,
what in the
Joburg,
metropolis?
Joburg, yeah, but this is big stuff. And Ekurhuleni, Tshwane, Mogale City, just a few of them, just in the economic hub of this country, of this continent. That is happening, and it's stable this time. Very different to what it was last time. But let's put this scenario down. And I don't know what your views are, Stefanie. I can't see Steenhuisen being the president. Okay, so
I'm not sure that I'm with you on that.
Okay, so and the DA have got an opportunity to fix that. If they don't, well, then they lose out on a lot of votes. But one thing we do know, all the projections are the ANC will not get above 50% in the next elections. It's projected to be about 45%, which is what they got in Joburg, and they don't rule in Joburg. So it will be a case of everybody but the ANC.
Except if the DA or the EFF or someone does a deal with the ANC and then they become the majority.
Well, that'll come down to the selecting of the president, but there will be conditions. That's coalition politics anyway. But can you imagine the 55% of everybody else parking the ANC to one side? Now, what does that dynamic look like? And that's where a Herman Mashaba or a Songezo Zibi, who we hope goes into politics, can be the deal maker and say, right, it's not going to be Steenhuisen, it's going to be one of these stronger, smaller parties that is more representative. And that's going to be a very interesting dynamic. So I can bet your bottom dollar in just under 2 years from now, the ANC will no longer be in power. And that is what we have to look forward to, and the dynamics that will come from that. That is our big catalyst for change.
Lots coming in around the fuel price levy. Here's one from, let's go to the YouTube feed, shall we? And say hello to Spiwe Selo, who says, evening, guys. My question is, do we need all the levies inside the petrol price? Are they being used effectively?
Stefanie?
Oh, yeah, if you ask me, I'll scrap all of them. Wayne and I actually have a disagreement.
Does the government rely on that money so much that we can't get rid of it?
It's easy. It's easy for them to collect
It's our fourth
as
biggest
tax.
It's the fourth biggest tax is the fuel levy, 90 billion rand a year. But you see the other levies, there's 10 of them. The retail levy that goes to the petrol stations.
You're an expert on these levies.
Oh,
you can quote the numbers. I was in an Uber the other day, and I was chatting about the fuel price, and the taxi driver was saying, "Yeah, there's that guy who broke down the levies on YouTube," and I flashed him a picture of Wayne, and he said, "Yeah, that guy." And so Uber drivers and Bolt drivers are now as well educated and versed as Wayne Duvenage is on the fuel price structure, but it's complicated, Wayne.
It is.
1 rand there and 20 cents there.
They've allowed too many of them to slip in over time, but they can take about 3 out. That's going to save about 34 to 40 cents. That's not the big ticket items. The big one is the fuel levy, where they did reduce it for the first time ever, by the way, 1 rand 50 for a while. So we've got a taste that government can move that, and that's where we've got to put the pressure on. They didn't increase that levy, and that was due to the pressure that we put on them because they've been increasing it above inflation. So the big other one is the road accident fund. That is
that was the part of Spiwe's question that I didn't put in, which I think was off screen, but he said, well, except for the RAF. Are they the guys wasting all the money?
That's a mess. That's gone up to 2 rand 18 cents a litre. It's bringing in about 50 billion rand. They're throwing money at the problem. The RAF is a complex situation. Look, we do have to compensate people who've been injured in road accidents, and you'll only know that when you get injured and you can't earn a living anymore. But this is something that government cannot manage. It's far too complex. So they have messed it up. The maladministration, the system failures, the corruption that has crept in, have gone from a 10 billion rand when it was washing its own face and keeping its head above water 14 years ago to a mess at 50 billion rand. So we are saying, and we believe there is a team working in the presidency to fix this, and they're going to be working with the professionals, which are the insurance industry, put in systems and processes in place. But a lot of people suggest go back to the third-party disc. That never worked. It never will work. It has to be a levy on the fuel, but it's just overpriced and badly managed.
Here's what worries me, and I'm glad that Tyrone Sykes brought this up, because I think it's an important part of the conversation. We know that fuel levies are linked to food price increases because we transport everything by road in South Africa. We used to have a rail infrastructure that transported, but it all comes up by truck now. And Tyrone says, if by any chance the petrol price comes down, will all the other prices like food come down? And I worry about the food retail industry hanging on to on the manufacturers, distributors, and retailers, in fact, hanging on to the high food prices, even if the fuel price comes down. And whether government and civil society or South Africans in general should just be keeping an eye on these guys, that when the fuel price comes down, the can of baked beans price doesn't stay where it is at the moment. Or is that just wishful thinking, dreaming on my part?
Free market and competitive forces will bring it down.
Okay.
The people watch that, and if Checkers sells it cheaper, they go there, and then Pick n Pay brings it down. You just got to understand that you can't over profiteer for too long. They'll push that envelope, but over time, the profit margins go up, and other companies will compete, and so they'll lose market share.
My brother came up from Cape Town 2 weeks ago, or a week or so ago. He drove up and he drove through Beaufort West, the Central Karoo district. And I mentioned Gayton McKenzie's name a little earlier on, and I'm going to mention it again, and with a little bit of a story attached to it. I interviewed Gayton when he came out of prison. I mean, Gayton was a bank robber. And I remember sitting in a talk radio studio, and I think he may have written a book, or he was promoting something, and I spent an hour with Gayton McKenzie asking him all sorts of questions. And he sat there and said, I'm reformed. I want to give back to society. I still remember when he walked out, when you interview a bank robber and they say, I'm good now, and then he goes into politics. I think, but he's starting to look good to the residents of Beaufort West. I've seen they repainting swimming pools. They've been opening businesses in the first 100 days, filling potholes. They've got kids working in the streets. I'm not sure how widespread and effective that is. But my brother drove up from Cape Town the other day and said there were potholes everywhere. The towns were shambles, except for Beaufort West. When they drove through Beaufort West, everything seems to be working. And the reason I'm mentioning it is not because I look at Gayton McKenzie as a savior for South Africa or a political savior, but is it that kind of action that we need from politicians, where you actually, when you're a mayor, you put on an overall, not a three-piece suit. And you get into the businesses and you get into the community. Is that not really our problem here? Is that our politicians and our government workers are completely out of touch with the lives of ordinary South Africans? They don't have to go to state hospitals. The kids are educated in private schools. We've said this many times before. If one of them is touched by crime, then there's a task team and a police minister. But, if I'm hit on the way home tonight, who's going to care?
Some of them don't even drive their own cars. Yeah.
I mean, how powerful is that, getting involved, actually getting your fingers dirty as a politician?
Before Wayne answers, I just want to say, it's not even politicians. I think I want to say that is what civil society also needs to do. Getting your hands dirty and get in there. Yeah.
Wayne?
I'm
going to jump across and readjust Stefanie's mic while you chat quickly.
Okay, no problem. Look, without a doubt, we love to see politicians doing the work. And then to that point, there should be a law that no politicians' kids will go to a private school. They will all go to government schools. There should be a law that politicians will never use a private hospital. They will go to the state hospitals. And you'll see how quickly that mess gets fixed up.
So how do we... is that how we fix failing municipalities, or does it need more than that? I mean, what do we do with these failing municipalities? We've got the Auditor General's report basically names every municipality, labels them as a shambles.
50% of them. What did
and they want to change
what surprised me was that municipalities are actually in debt. So by the time they're like the average South African household, by the time they get to the end of the year, there's so much money that's going to come in next year that's going to service debt.
26% of municipalities have spent half of next year's budget already. That's what the Auditor General reported on. So it's a sad situation, and then of course, Honored Lamini Zuma says, let's have a skills swap. And somebody must just remind her, are you telling us that the municipal managers who've stuffed up a town in, let's say, the Northern Cape must go to a town that's working? What are they going to do there? There's no swapping of skills there. But if you want to send the people with the skills to the municipalities to help them fix, that's not the solution. The solution is get rid of the inept, inexperienced, underqualified people that are running and these towns into the ground. Put the qualified people in. You don't need a skills swap. You need a skills.
But how do you do that? Let me ask you practically. Let's say Wayne Duvenage becomes mayor of Nigel tomorrow.
Amen.
Well, come on. I'm in East Rand. Okay, you can pick the place. You pick it. Where do you want to be? Stellenbosch?
No. Let's go with Nigel, the boring power time.
All right, so Wayne Duvenage becomes mayor of Nigel tomorrow. And you've got a whole lot
Stefanie Fick. Let's go to Stefanie.
All right,
she's going to be the mayor of Nigel.
Oh, cook.
Right,
okay.
Stefanie Fick is the mayor of Nigel. And you've got potholes, and you've got problems, and you've got service delivery problems, and you've got a whole bunch of people working for you. Some can't do the job. Some can, but they're not doing the job. And some can do the job. Well, how do you start? And then practically, what do you do? Because the moment you say, hey, I'm going to get rid of this whole bunch of people, then the unions rock up at the door, and they say, if you do that, we'll shut you down.
Sure. I wanted to say that I think I'll...
sorry, I threw it at you.
No. I think I'll fire everybody. You can apply for your job again.
What,
Look at your CV.
fire everyone and
Everybody.
deal with it at the CCMA?
Yes.
Okay.
But I think one should go back to the community. I don't know. Am I coming from the community? So my question is, do you understand the needs of the community? And I'm literally you will have to ask the community for their help. There's a trust deficit. And I think if leaders sort of get the trust back, that includes the mayor, get the trust back and say, I can't do this alone, I need you. So you help me, I'll help you. We'll get rid of performance manage, all the managers. Performance manage the people out and reward the people that is willing to stay behind. You need to professionalize again the public service, which includes local government.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be easy. I'm not saying that, for anybody going into a municipality that's falling apart, it's not going to be an easy job. And it's easy to sit here and say, this is what you're going to do. But I think you need to start with your community.
Wait, I'm not going to let you off the hook. What would you do if you were mayor of Nigel?
Well, I think to Stefani's
Besides
point,
rename Nigel.
you've got to first look at the qualifications of your key positions, so engineers, finance people, if they're not qualified. If they are they performing? And you've got to get the right people in to do the job. Then look at the productivity. And I think the best thing is take Nigel and benchmark it to a similar sized town that is firing on all four cylinders. So let's say Nigel is the same size as Knysna or
And what do you
Midvaal.
start with? What do you fix first? I know what I'd fix. I'll
You've
tell you
got to-
what, but
you've got to
I'll wait for you.
prioritize.
Yeah.
You have to prioritize. The first thing is you've got to make sure that all your funding is spent properly. Your integrated development plans are dealing with the real issues. You're going to be broke for a while as you start to fix. You've got infrastructure that needs to be fixed so you don't have leaking water, transformers that aren't producing the energy, so you've got to fix infrastructure. I would take out unnecessary heads because most of the municipalities' budgets these days, most of it is spent on staff, and that wasn't the case 10 years ago. So you've got to take that out. And the first thing you've got to do, because a lot of municipalities are losing a lot of money because they don't know how to hold ratepayers to account when they don't pay. They've lost the systems. You bring in the skills to make sure that you collect your debt. You get your payments rates well over 90%. Some of them are down. In fact, the Auditor General says 60% of the debt that municipalities have will never be collected. Never be collected. Billions of rands. So
you write that
that's
off?
like a business. If you run a business and people don't pay you and you don't chase that
You're
debt,
not going to make it.
you've got a problem. But they don't even know who doesn't owe them. So the systems are wrong. So just prioritize all of those things and fix them, and you will turn that municipality around.
Maybe I've got a bit of politician in my brain, because the first thing I would do is the first thing I would do if I was mayor of Nigel, right, is
Have a braai.
that's not a bad
Go
idea.
and get a quote on a Mercedes.
No, I
The
wouldn't.
latest
No,
model.
I wouldn't do. No. It's not as devious as that. In fact, I think first thing, have a braai is not a bad idea. And the reason I say this is I've worked in corporates before, and I've done about 100 million team building events. I walked on coals for 702, stood on 10-foot poles for Vodacom. I mean, I just think team building is ridiculous in the first place, right? I think you put South Africans around a braai on a Friday afternoon, and you buy some boerewors and some rolls and some tomato sauce and mustard. Someone goes off to the bottle store and gets some beer. Someone gets some chakalaka and some pap, and you stand around for a couple of hours and you discuss the issues. Solutions will come out of it. So I think I would have a braai. That would be the first thing I did. But the second thing I did is I would start fixing everything that is visible to the eye, so that people could see I'm actually doing something. And perhaps that would be the start. I'd buy a whole lot of white paint. And I get people to repaint all the white markings and the stop on every road, so that when you drive through Nigel, you go, hey, that Mayor Tom over there. I'm going to let you respond in a moment. I know there's something you don't like in this. But I would paint all the road signs. I'd get a team with grass cutters to all the pavements, and I'd start there so that the people who are in my constituency would go, hey, that Mayor Tom is doing something. Then we start working on the other, the more complex problems. Yes, Stefanie?
No, first things first. You'll probably have to build some roads first before you can paint them. But love what...
Yeah, but that's fine, because we'll make a pothole crew as well. And so people will see...
But Tom, the strategy is right, and that's exactly what the DA did when they won Cape Town. They attacked fixed up all the visible things, because you got to create the hope and give the view and the support from the residents that things are changing. So of course you would do that. But it's a lot more than that.
Obviously, it's a lot more complex than that. Yes, ma'am.
Totally off topic.
Ja.
Van die os op die menorah blades.
What was that? Van die os of die menor? What does that mean?
What does that mean? She says it often, and I don't know what it
That
means.
sounds like it comes
I'm
from a,
changing the
hold on, it sounds like it
subject.
comes from a game farm auction. Die os op die menorah
Van die
blade.
os op die
What's
menorah
a
blades.
What does it
menorah?
mean?
What's a
Menorah
menorah?
blades.
Yeah,
What you
menorah
shave
blades is
with.
what you shave with.
So to keep the ox off the shaving blades. What's a os?
Why would you keep an ox off the shaving blade? You might have to call the president for the answer to this question.
It's changing the subject. So we were talking
Okay.
about thanks Ilse for sharing. You see, this is why South Africa is just beautiful, and that we are all. If we all, it takes one person to start making a difference. The acting public protector withdraws the court application to reverse Mrs. Siwe Makwebani's suspension. So she wrote to the respondents to inform them of her decision on Monday. She said the attorneys appointed by Makwebani wasn't authorized, instructed, or briefed by her as the acting public protector. So, there's a person that is standing up with a little bit of moral courage and saying no more wastage. And, some good news for tonight, I think.
Now I see that somebody said, I'm going to respond to Spue's question, and okay, there we go. I know we've done that. All right, so that's cool. Cater deployment. See, the Zondo Commission has said, I found this fascinating, right? Zondo Commission report says it is unlawful and unconstitutional for a president, a deputy president, a minister, a deputy minister, a director general, or anybody inside a political party to deploy any, or take the advice or take the recommendation and deploy someone in government. And I see the ANC's responded to that. Here it is on screen. On findings on weaknesses and lapses by the ANC will, among others, review its policies with respect to cater deployment policy, practice, party, etc., etc. So the ANC is, yeah, okay, we know. But is this practical, Wayne? I mean, all over the world, political parties deploy their chosen people into positions. Can you eradicate that by calling it unconstitutional?
Well, yeah, I mean, how do you prove it, first of all? But let's remind ourselves that during Madiba's years, Mbeki's years, cater deployment was there. And this is the issue, though. If you put your selected people into positions that have the ability to do the job, the qualifications and the experience, and they put the public first in the way they manage
the key
their
word is
portfolios.
competence.
Yeah, competence, qualified, vision for the people, serving the people, then there's no problem with that. I don't care who you put in, as long as they do the job, whether they are part of your party or not. The DA certainly put their people into their
So you're
position.
not saying, and Outer's not saying, no, we will oppose any kind of deployment from political parties into government positions.
We've got to stop what the Judge Zonder's talking about. He's talking about politicians interfering in the administration of towns, cities, and departments. So the politicians should not be meddling in the appointment of the mayors, of the city managers, and the CFOs and all of those positions. That's where it is extremely wrong, and that's where the problems are happening.
Anything to add on cater deployment, Stefanie?
No, I just think that they say cadre deployment. I think what happened there, just the fact that Cyril Ramaphosa was part of a committee, that they don't have any minutes. So how serious was their cadre deployment in the first place? How honest was it that they really look at people? But I don't think it belongs in we need to professionalize government. We need to get people that can do the job with the necessary qualifications. Then I don't care who you are.
Perhaps if that government of the coalition government and parties having to work together to run this country comes to fruition, perhaps then we'll see John Steenhuisen in charge of a particular ministry and a Julius Malema, these guys who say they can clean it up better than the ruling party. Perhaps we'll see them in those positions and be able to judge for ourselves once and for all.
In many countries, the cabinet ministers are not filled with politicians, but with specialists and people who have expertise in the areas of transport and energy. And that's what we need, or at least excellent people in the DG positions. And that's where the cater deployment has happened.
Yeah.
We got 5 minutes left before we're out of here. We're going to switch off before the Eskom switches us off tonight, so we will be done by 8 o'clock. I want to talk about getting off our butts and becoming active. And we see people doing this. People doing their own little bit. And the other day, a week or so ago, we were outside the Rahima Musa Hospital protesting against what's been going on there. Not only the Tim de Meyer issue, but also the inefficiency and the general lack of anything good coming out of our state hospitals and clinics at the moment. I want to play a little piece so that I remember talking to you and saying come along, but it was late notice, so I took a camera along so you could see what Outer was up to outside the Rahima Musa Hospital. We'll play you that clip and then ask for Wayne's comment.
These are very complex situations to manage, and we really need the right people to manage our hospitals and to listen to our doctors, to listen to our nurses, to listen to our patients, and to take these matters seriously, because we cannot have this death and destruction of lives that is happening every single day, not only at hospitals, at clinics as well.
Thank you so much.
You know, I'm an activist on Flickr. I wanted 1,000 people next to me and start, maneuvering the palisade fencing a bit to let people know we're serious. But how did you feel on that day, Wayne?
Mobilization is one of the steps in our methodology, and this is important stuff that we do. It's getting out there and making people feel the pressure at the gates of their offices. And I can tell you, the nurses and the doctors and the medical staff that came out and thanked us for being there.
Yeah.
Some of them joined the protest. The media's there. This is the stuff that puts the issue of the cadre deployed individual who runs the hospital, the CEO, on the spotlight. It puts pressure on the MEC of Health to remove people that are not performing. And all kudos to the moral courage that Dr. de Meyer exercised when he put that letter out, and which he was suspended, but civil society pressure made sure that he would be reinstated, and he is. And I think the spotlight is now on her. So it's good to get out there. It's lovely to protest. We don't have the time. Ali and his team do an excellent job. I'm still trying to learn some of the words to some of those dances. It's really catchy, and it's great energy to be out there. Yeah, it's good. We've got to keep doing more of it.
We'll take cameras to those protests so that you can join us virtually, at least on the Outer Hour. All right, less than a minute each. Wrap up. Message to Outer Hour viewers. Wayne Duvenage. Stefanie Fick.
No,
ladies
leave it
first.
with Stefanie, you finish off. I've spoken enough.
Support small business, be kind to animals and people, support Outer, and become an active citizen. We need one another. And I think if we stand together, we can fix this country. We have a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful country, and there is always hope. I refuse to lose hope, because if you lose hope, there is no, then you're in the gutter. And I refuse. We are strong together, and it is really time. We talk about racism, and we have a very difficult history, and everything is not sorted.
Yeah.
But what I've seen with Defend Our Democracy, whether you're old, whether you're young, whether you're male, whether you're female, doesn't matter. We have common ground, and together we can eradicate corruption. We can create better lives for the majority of South Africans.
Yeah.
And we can do it if we
I'd
stand together.
love to have a conversation on race relations one day, because I think it's something that hasn't been addressed in South Africa. We've spent so much time worrying about issues that we haven't focused on how to work together as different cultures and races in the country. I know you're going to have 30 seconds, Wayne. Go for it.
Yeah, just to say, to add to what Stefanie is saying, and being an Outer supporter is being an active citizen, because we don't all have time to get out there. But if you can help somebody to get out there and support an organization like Outer for 100 Rand a month, then you're an active citizen. You get our newsletters, you get updates, and you just know that your money is being put to great work. So be an active citizen by being an Outer supporter.
Go to outer.co.za and hit the join now button. You can also learn more about the organization at outer.co.za. You can go there after the show. Last comment of the night, Ferial Adam. Wayne is like a walk-in encyclopedia.
That's true. No, that's true.
And I don't know how I'm going to remove that comment now because it was so many comments up, I can't find it, and it might just be stuck on the screen forever. My goodness. I honestly don't know how to get rid of this comment. There have been so many flying in, I've got to look for it to get rid of it. Give me a second so that we can close the show properly without a comment on the screen. My goodness, you guys have been busy tonight. Thank you very much. What I'll do is this.
Yeah, we just love the people that join us.
You've lost it, Tom. You've lost the plot.
All right, no, we'll just leave it with Ali Goules tomorrow. Today I put $100 fuel and the gauge indicator has not moved from the bottom, which was not supposed to be a comedy or a comedic comment, but we're going to laugh about it anyway. All right, I think that's the thing that we really do have in common as a country. We've got a great sense of humor, and sense of humor is not going to fix potholes and it's not going to change corruption in the country. But I think a sense of humor is vital to survive not only the current problems in this country, but the worldwide problem. You can imagine living in America. You'd need a sense of humor just to get past the abortion and the gun debates that are going on there in the moment. Or at the moment. So thank you for everything tonight as you watch the show from wherever you are. And I would just like to say welcome you back next week, 7 p.m. That's when we go live. If you're watching the show post-live, we appreciate it. We've got people all over the world, different time zones, who hit the play button. My uncle in Australia does. Hello, Uncle Lars. Thanks for hitting play. And I suppose I should do that in an Australian accent. Thanks, mate. And yeah, thank you to you for hitting the play button, especially if you join us live. We love your comments. A lot of them fly across the screen. We can put a few up. We hope that you've enjoyed the show this evening. Come back next week, Wednesday, 7 p.m. Until then, hope you make a bit of bucks. Hope you stay healthy. Hope the people around you treat you nicely and you treat them nicely. And most of all, hope you come back. 7 p.m. It's a date. Don't be late. I'm Tom London. And I miss you already.
Our fight to eradicate corruption, maladministration, unethical leaders, and the abuse of taxpayers' money by those in power continues. It's fresh, it's fearless, and focused. The Outer Hour, where your voice matters.